on class. So we can go ahead and get started. Good morning, everyone. We'll say a quick prayer. Our Father in heaven, we're thankful to be able to be here this morning in your presence, gathered as a group of believers that are proud to profess our belief in you and your Son and the sacrifice you made on our behalf. I pray this morning as we study here in the adult class that your word provides us with the understanding and wisdom to navigate the struggles and temptations of this life. Pray that you'd strengthen each of us with a desire to serve each other, more importantly than ourselves, and a graciousness in our heart for the sacrifice of your Son. Pray you forgive our sins. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, so we're in Genesis 27, and we're going to try to do 27 and 28 today, hopefully. So we're going to have to kind of move quick, but we do need to read the chapter because I think chapter 27 is important to read. So I'm going to try to read it quickly so we can keep moving. Let's go. When Isaac was old and his eyes were dim so that he could not see, he called Esau his older son and said to him, "My son." And he answered, "Here I am." He said, "Behold, I am old. I do not know the day of my death. Now then, take your weapons, your quiver and your bow, and go out into the field and hunt game for me. And prepare for me delicious food, such as I love, and bring it to me so that I may eat, that my soul may bless you before I die." Now Rebekah was listening when Isaac spoke to his son Esau. So when Esau went to the field to hunt for game and bring it, Rebekah said to her son Jacob, "I heard your father speak to your brother Esau. Bring me game and prepare for me delicious food, that I may eat it and bless you before the Lord before I die. Now therefore, my son, obey my voice as I command you. Go to the flock and bring me 2 young goats, that I may prepare them delicious food for your father, such as he loves. And you shall bring it to your father to eat, so that he may bless you before he dies." But Jacob said to Rebekah his mother, "Behold, my brother Esau is a hairy man, and I am a smooth man. Perhaps my father will feel me, and shall seem to be mocking him, and bring a curse upon me, and not a blessing." His mother said to him, "Let your curse be on me, my son. Obey my voice, and go bring them to me." So he went and took them and brought them to his father, and his mother prepared delicious food such as his father loved. Then Rebekah took the best garments of Esau, her older son, which was with her in her house, and put them on Jacob, her younger son. And the skins of the young goat she put on his hands and the smooth part of his neck. And she put the delicious food and the bread which she had prepared into the hands of her son Jacob. So he went into his father and said, "My father." And he said, "Here I am." "Who are you, my son?" Jacob said to his father, "I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done as you told me. Now sit up and eat of my game, so that your soul may bless me." Now Isaac said to his son, "How is it that you have found it so quickly, my son?" He answered, "Because the Lord your God granted me success." Now Isaac said to Jacob, "Please come near me, that I may feel you, my sons, to know whether you are really my son or Esau or not." So Jacob went near to Isaac his father, who felt him and said, "The voice is Jacob's voice, but the hands are of Esau." And he did not recognize him, because his hands were hairy like his brother Esau's. So he blessed him. He said, "Are you really my son, Esau?" He answered, "I am." Then he said, "Bring it near to me, that I may eat of my son's game and bless you." So he brought it near to him, and he ate, and he drank wine. And then his father Isaac said to him, "Come near to me and kiss me, my son." So he came near to him and kissed him. So Isaac smelled the scent of his garments and blessed him, and said, "See, the smell of my son is the smell of a field that the Lord has blessed. May God give you the dew of heaven and the fatness of the earth and the plenty of grain and wine. Let people serve you and nations bow down to you. Be Lord over your borders, and may your mother's sons bow down to you. Cursed be everyone who curses you, and blessed be everyone who blesses you." As soon as Isaac had finished blessing Jacob, when Jacob had scarcely gone out from the presence of Isaac his father, Esau his brother came in from his hunting. He also prepared delicious food and brought it to his father. And he said to his father, "Let my father arise and eat of his son's game, that you may bless me." His father Isaac said to him, "Who are you?" He answered, "I am your son, firstborn son, Esau." Then Isaac trembled very violently and said, Who was it then that hunted game and brought it to me, and I ate before you came? And I have blessed him. Yes, and he shall be blessed. As soon as Esau heard the words of his father, he cried out with an exceedingly great and bitter cry, and said to his father, Bless me, even me, O father. But he said, Your brother became deceitful, and he was taken away your blessing. Esau said, Is it not rightly named Jacob? For he has cheated me these 2 times. He took away my birthright, and now he has taken away my blessing. And he said, You have not received a blessing. Have you not received a blessing from me? Isaac answered and said to Esau, Behold, I have made him lord over you, and all his brothers I have given to him for servants, and with grain and wine I have sustained him. What then can I do for you, my son? Esau said to his father, Have you but one blessing for me? Bless me, even me, my father. And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. Then Isaac his father answered him and said, Behold, away from the fatness of the earth shall your dwelling be, and away from the dew of heaven on high. By the sword you shall live, and you shall serve your brother. But when you grow restless, you shall break his yoke from his neck. Now Esau hated Jacob because of the blessings in which his father had blessed him. And Esau said to him, The days of mourning for my father are approaching, and I will kill my brother Jacob. But the words of Esau, her younger son, were told to Rebekah. So she sent and called Jacob, her younger son, and said to him, Behold, your brother Esau comforts himself about you by planning to kill you. Now therefore, my son, obey my voice. Arise, flee to Laban my brother in Haran, and stay with him a while, until your brother's fury turns away, until your brother's anger turns away from you, and he forgets what you have done to him. Then I will send and bring you here. Why should I be bereft of both of you in one day? Then Rebekah said to Isaac, I loathe my life because of the Hittite women. If Jacob marries one of these Hittite women like these, one of the women of the land, what good will my life be to me? When you read through Hebrews chapter 11, and it talks about the faith of Abraham and Abel and various other people, when you get to Jacob, what is your overall impression of Jacob? We can even do raise a hand. When you think of a man of righteousness, faith, determination to serve God, everybody raise your hand if that's what comes to your mind when you think about Jacob. Not a single hand. But why is he in Hebrews chapter 11? As a man of faith. He changed? Yeah, I'm sure that he did over time. And I think he changed right in this very story, to be honest with you. All the other people in Hebrews chapter 11, do you feel that way about any of the other ones? Or do you think about, yeah, they had some flaws. Abraham, lied. Different people did different things wrong. But you still, in my mind, there's a differentiation between the character of Abraham and the character of Jacob. Every person in this story is out for themselves. And it's funny, when I just read through this, I didn't catch it till this very time when I read it out loud. In the very end, when Rebekah says, where's my glasses? What you have done. And I'm like, are you oblivious, woman, to what your part in this is? I mean, all 4 of them are in this self-serving, what's in this for me. Who does Isaac know who he's supposed to give the blessing to? At this point? The oldest, but does he know that that's what God intends? Like I guess I'm not asking right. At this point, does Isaac, I get the names mixed up. Isaac know that this blessing is supposed to, God's will is that the blessing is supposed to go to Jacob? Or does he, you don't think he does? And, yeah. I mean, I don't know I really don't know the answer to it. But you can look at it from both ways, because Esau was the oldest and deserved the birthright, right? But he had despised it already at this point. Yeah, Lewis.
Back in chapter 25, verse 23, God said that the older would serve the younger.
Yeah.
Well, Whether or not Isaac knows that,
But that's where I'm getting to, and I'm glad you brought to that. That could be very well be that he knows that this is not supposed to go. She knew for sure. But he very well could have known that this was not supposed to go to Esau, but who he determined to give it to by whatever means. Esau. I mean, he has got it set in his heart by whatever means to get this to Esau, regardless of. Yeah, Gene.
I think that was the tradition back then. Always received the double portion or whatever.
Right, that's what it was supposed to happen. But like Lewis said back in chapter 25, the younger shall serve the older. Right? Or did I get backwards? The older shall serve the younger. Yeah, I got that. So there was a prophecy from God previous to this that was known. And there's a determination to bypass the will of God somehow here by all multiple parties. So, also, I know this is going to run out of time in this class, but I think it's important to think about how we get to the age of Isaac at this point. I had gone through a big, long thing that I had found about how to determine out the age of him, but to make the matter short, he pretty accurately about 180 years old. But he's not 180 years old at this point. In fact, he had about a little over 40 years to live. But what's the very first thing that comes out of his mouth? He's determined himself that he's fixing to die, right? His eyesight's bad. Apparently he can't taste the difference between what his wife cooks and something else. There's lots of things that he's old for sure, but he's not fixing to die. How do we act like that sometimes? The end of the world's coming, what various forms, right? My financial ruin, my marriage, my whatever, we're consumed with concern for things, and he was determined that he knew he was gonna die, he needed to get this done. But think about it in his heart, if he knew he was supposed to go one direction, he's fighting against the will of God and time, he thinks time to get this blessing to Esau. Interesting though, when you on the way to figuring out how old he is, when you get to that point, there's some things that are interesting. That when Isaac he could have known all of his grandchildren that were Jacob's, because they came back about 15 years before his death, and Joseph would have been in slavery and presumed dead before Isaac's death. But Joseph became a leader in Egypt, and when you think about who does he ask to bring back to him as proof? Joseph asked when he's in Egypt to bring back to him as proof. The younger, his brother, Benjamin. So Benjamin would have been a baby at that point, but now he's 35 years old. So think that makes you think about when you figure out the timeline of these things, that he's asking to see his baby brother, Joseph is, and now he's a 35-year-old man when he comes back to Joseph. Jacob would have lived to see his grandkids when he came back. So he says, make for me savory food such as I love. He was feeling old. He thought he was about to die, but he wasn't actually about to die. At this point, both of his sons would have been about 120 years old. And Rebecca knew her husband well enough that he wouldn't be able to tell the difference, apparently, between the two foods. So she has devised this plan. And sorry, I keep taking my glasses on off. I can't read. I was blind as Jacob. Or Isaac. She knows her husband, obviously, and she has devised this plan. Do you think the plan was premeditated? Like she had this waiting for the moment to whatever plan she could devise to get herself what she willed into this? If she did, she came up with a plan right on the fly and was pretty good about making it come about. She makes the food and devises this plan. Does Isaac protest the plan in any way? What's his only concern? Not getting caught. his only concern is, are we going to be successful with this plan to lie to my father? And Jacob, or Isaac, in his old age, probably never would have thought that his son would lie to him multiple times to his face. Because he gets pressed several times. Who are you? Who is this? He's skeptical right there in the story. So Rebekah advises Jacob to deceive his father. Preparations are made to steal the blessing. Each person in this story is not concerned about the spiritual aspect of this, anything. They're concerned about themselves. Who's Isaac? Who's Isaac concerned about? Anyone? Himself. I mean, he's only concerned that he's not going to get caught, and he's just as happy to have the material blessings as Esau would have been. Who's Esau worried about? Himself. Who's Jacob worried about? Himself. And who's Rebecca worried about? Herself. I mean, everybody in this family does not trust each other. They're all out for their own selves. But yet this man and his family is recorded in Hebrews chapter 11 as a man of faith that served God. And I think further in this story, to be honest with you, my negative opinion of him gets worse the further this chapter goes on. This, to me, is the first of his just poor choices that obviously any of us could make. Yes, sir.
One thing is, it says that Isaac loved Esau, but Rebekah loved Jacob, so they had favoritism going on among the children.
Yeah.
Which has a ripple effect throughout the family.
Yeah, and any of our families can be the same way, even with grandchildren. So Jacob received the blessing that was intended for Esau. Can anyone think of a situation? How do you think Jacob justified this? First, how do you think he justified telling the lie?
He already made the deal with Esau.
Yeah. So in his mind, was he just collecting what he owed? But was he still in the process sinning, in the process of collecting what was rightfully his? Was it a lie? Yeah, absolutely. There's no way around it. He deceived his father willingly, and everybody in this party was sinful. Is there ever any times when we justify doing something wrong because it's because it's what's the word? It's justifiable by you're not sinning. See what I'm saying? Trying to say, like, he justified this in his mind somehow, that this was rightfully his. Whatever means I can get this, it's okay because it's coming to me anyway, so I can sin to get that, right? I don't know. You can think about that. I mean, there's surely ways in our lives that we justify doing sinful things because ultimately we believe that it's like going to benefit us spiritually. I should have probably thought of some examples ahead of time, but yeah.
I could have been Rebecca's train of thought because in Genesis 25, God reveals to her that the older is going to serve the younger. That, well, this is the way that we make this happen.
Yeah, who does that remind you of?
That's literally on,
God's
taking something in your own hands when God's not making that happen.
Right.
And it's very similar to Abraham.
Yeah, there you go.
Sarah and Hagar. It's very similar to what Sarah did.
Yeah, you take that. Yeah, I was roundaboutly trying to get to that by not being able to ask the question correctly. Abraham and Sarah did the same thing. You're taking God's end of the stick and trying to whittle from it, like Grant said. And instead of waiting on God this was the true path. Jacob was supposed to get this blessing, but it was not supposed to come about this way. So when Esau comes back in and Jacob realizes that he has already given the blessing away, could he have reversed his direction and tried to say, man, it was a mistake, I was tricked, I was lied to, it really is yours. No. And Mom, to your point, I think this point right here is the change in this man's behavior and his whole attitude. He says it right in the very next verse. I'm not going to change the decision that I've made, even though I was lied and deceived to get to this outcome. All right, so let me find myself in the notes here. I got ahead of myself a little bit. So when Isaac, it says that, or Esau raises his voice in wailing and begs his father multiple times, please bless me as well. And he accuses Isaac of what? Twice my brother has done this. Was that true? Yes, sort of. But what transpired the first time?
The first time he didn't really deceive him, he just took advantage of his weakness.
Yeah, he took advantage, definitely. But he willfully gave it away. And also in Hebrews, what did it say that Esau did? What was his attitude towards his birthright? He despised it. What does that? It means that it was of so little value to him that a bowl of food was more valuable to him. So in God's mind, he's looking at Esau and thinking, this means nothing to you anyway. So why is Esau so upset here? Is it the spiritual blessings or the material blessings that he's so tore up about? Yeah, yes. First, he thinks it's due to him for sure. But he is so more consumed with the material things that he's proved his behavior multiple times that a spiritual aspect of this man is not prevalent. In fact, he says in verse 20, when Jacob asked him, how have you come back so quickly? What does he say? Because the Lord who? Your God. To me, that's a pretty strong profession of this. This is the fellow you believe in, gave you success, but I don't particularly believe in him. Who does he marry? Two Canaanite women, right? So he's got two Hittite Canaanite women as wives. The very last verse of this chapter, obviously, previously, and I believe in chapter 25, it talked about that Jacob and Rebekah, this vexed them terribly. She's tore up about this. And the first verse of chapter 28, Isaac's tore up about it. Like they're super concerned that he doesn't go down the same path and marry Canaanite women. Ironically, what's Esau end up doing? He's already got two Canaanite wives. What's he do in the next chapter? He doubles down, but are they Canaanite women? No. He marries daughters of Ishmael, which are not Canaanite women, in an attempt to do maybe what? He's still trying to do what? Get back and just like, hey, my brother, he obeyed when he didn't. I'm going to go grab a couple of these non-Canaanite women and try to please my father still. He's still super consumed with this blessing and what the curse that ends up essentially a curse on him, that he's a nomad, wanderer. Oh, okay, we got a little bit of time. So the blessing is passed to Isaac. However that comes about, God used this situation that was obviously, who knows how God had planned for it to come about, but Jacob was supposed to be the rightful heir of this. He receives the blessing. Isaac's full of anger, tears, says that he's going to murder his brother when? As soon as his father dies. He has at least enough respect for his father to wait till he dies. But what does it give Esau in the meantime? All these years or he thinks it's probably pretty soon, but it ends up being years. And the hardness in his heart fades. But it said that it was a comfort to him. Hate and hurt consume you? It can. 2 years, or no, not 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, my heart was consumed with it. Hurt, and everybody knows what I'm referring to, and just the sorrow in my heart, and the unknown of the future. But think about when your own brother, you hate him so much that you just are counting down the days till you're able to get this done. And it's a comfort to you in your heart. It gives you the fuel every day to get up and get going. I'm going to get to kill my brother someday for the response to this. You think that your heart's capable of getting that far? Mine is.
Think about how he felt towards his mother. That was in the relationship.
Yeah, his brother. It's hard sometimes not, in my heart, it's hard not to feel somewhat kind of bad for Esau. Like, yeah, he despised his birthright. He made some stupid decisions, but man, he gets his mother lies to him. His father refuses to go back on it, which was God's will. His brother deceived him. He just had a rough way of it, and it didn't get any easy for him. He was a no man. He lived by the sword. Everything he did in his life. And when you get to the reaction later on, when the brothers meet again, it's still hard for me in my heart to be mad at Esau, because what kind of heart does he have then? He says, I have everything I need, brother. And so what is that in response to where, in this chapter, the very end of it says, the younger shall serve the older, but at some point, what happens? The yoke will be broken. Yeah, so I think that's what referring to. Okay. So the transfer of Abraham's blessing goes to Jacob, and then we move into. Actually, we need to talk about it. Rebekah makes plans for him to leave to go to her brother Laban's. Were these pagan people, or were they God-fearing people? Who ends up being? Yeah. Who ends up being Jacob's wife that he works, loves, and cares for? Rachel. What does it say that she stole when she was leaving? Idols. I mean, he married an idolatrous woman, and the influence came right with him from the very first time on. So both of these boys made choices, and that there's lessons in here for all of us to take note of.
This is the family that Abraham was called out of.
Yeah. So Rebekah, she's tore up that she does not want Jacob to marry an idolatrous Canaanite Hittite woman, but eventually what ends up happening anyway? They get married adulterous, idol-worshipping women. So it ends up in this sense. So, and then we move into chapter 28. Isaac at the very beginning of it. We'll just, because we're running out of time, we won't read it, so you guys can read it on your own. But he's also tore up that Jacob, he does not want to take a wife from the daughters of Canaan. Because he was the one that was to inherit the birthright and carry on the seed of Messiah. Was there anybody in the lineage of Jesus that was a Gentile? Several. Yeah, Tamar, Rahab, Ruth, Bathsheba. So if Jacob could have that have thwarted God's plan? God's plan gets worked out no matter how God wants to work it out. That was evident in the previous chapter when they, like Abraham and Sarah, and they tried to make the plan for themselves. God gets it all figured out in the end. So he goes away. He ends up. It ends up being years, not a little bit of time. On the way, he has this blessing reiterated to him from who? In what kind of form? He lays down for the night, and has a dream, and what happens in the dream? What is this? There's a ladder or stairway to heaven, right? Back and forth, and what angels are descending and ascending on the ladder. So when Jacob wakes up on this journey, he says that this place that he had this dream, he's going to rename it Bethel. And in the blessing, God Almighty reiterates to him again all the blessings that are on their way through him and his family. A promise to land, a nation, an assembly of people, a blessing given to Abraham, just like Abraham was promised. The amazing thing, God brought anything, it was a triumph in God's sovereignty that he was brought all of this about through man's trying to do this about God's plan. So Esau becomes aware, or I'm sorry, Jacob, the dreams of the letter, and we're in, somebody turn to John chapter 1, verses 50 through 51. Mitch, do you mind to read that? John 1, 50 through 51. Yeah.
Jesus answered and said to him, because I said to you that I saw you under the fig tree, do you believe? You shall see greater things than these. And he said unto him, truly, truly, I say to you, you shall see the heavens open and the angels of God ascending and descending on the Son of Man.
So Jacob witnessed this very act of God in a dream. The access to heaven is coming in the form to you. When they built the Tower of Babel, what were they trying to obtain?
Reach heaven.
They were trying to reach heaven. Man trying to reach heaven. This is the opposite of that. This is a dream that God is coming down to man in the form of the Savior. So, do you think that Jacob walks away from this dream of the blessing with the right focus? Yeah, Mom?
Towards the end of that chapter, after he's seen the dream, he says, that if God will be with me and will watch over me, I'm taking out every food, then I will return, then the Lord will be with me. He's trying to make some kind of deal with God. If you do these things for me, then you'll be my God.
Yeah, it's troubling to me that the way he words this, he's trying to still make the deal according to what he thinks it should be, and make, if you'll do this for me, then I'll in return, but only if you're going to do this up front. Mitch?
I do think that he comes away from this dream with an assurity that God is.
Yes.
Yeah, he does try to make this deal. Well, if you want me to serve you, you're going to do these things for me. But I think he does come away from this with the assurity that God is.
Yeah. And I do obviously believe that Jacob was a man of faith, or he wouldn't be mentioned in Hebrews chapter 11. And it very well could be that other people in that chapter had just as many flaws, but they're not recorded. But it's focused in on this man, and he has to, for some reason, he fights and struggles, and even his name himself, he's deceptive, and he feels like he has got to make the plans instead of God lots of times, and we do it every day.
They came from a dysfunctional home, and character is built in a functional home that's right to God. And this man doesn't seem to have it. From the vision of a very long, it seems to change after he's moving toward God after that.
Yeah, and with that point, I think that God's relationship with him shows the long suffering of God. I mean, the boldness to try to make deals with, Abraham did it, I guess, when he tried to deal for Sodom and Gomorrah. But I think it was a little bit different. Abraham was bargaining on somebody else's behalf. Who's he bargaining on here? Himself again. If you're gonna, I'll serve you if. So it's interesting to think about God's promise. God says, "I am the Lord God. I will give to you. I am with you. I will not leave you until I have done what I have spoken." Jacob's vow to God is, "God will be with me and keep me. And in this way, what I'm going, give me bread and clothing so that I will come back to my father's house." Then yeah, then you prove to me, and you can be my God. Can you imagine saying to God, "If you'll do these things for me, then I'll allow you to be my God"? That's essentially what he's saying. And that, to me, speaks volumes about the patience and long suffering of God. That we may not verbally say those things, but what do we do? I do anyway. Like when I want to do something wrong, and and then it's a fight and it's a struggle. You come up with ways to justify things. You keep fighting against yourself, and you're fighting against God the whole time. But he's patient with all of us, and he's long suffering with all of us, just like he was with Jacob until he ends up in Hebrews 11 as the man of faith. Any other comments? Points? Think about it. It may have been much better if Jacob would have prayed, "Because you have promised to be with me and to keep me and to provide for all my needs and to bring me back to the land that you swore to my fathers and to me, I will be completely yours." That's the kind of heart that we need to strive to develop, not bargaining with God. He was gracious enough to take the covenant back, and he saw an unspiritual response from Jacob, but he still hung in there with him. So any other comments, points about chapter 27, 28? Yes, sir.
We all are familiar with what Paul said on Mars Hill when he said, "At this time, ignorance God overlooked." We have to kind of remember that Abraham and Isaac and Jacob didn't have scripture. They only had what God directly told them. And it wasn't like he spoke to them every single day. He hadn't revealed everything. So there's a lot of things that they did that God overlooked. Because even though they were flawed just like we are, they didn't have what we have. They didn't have, God's word. And so they were doing the best they could, probably. And that's why God found them faithful. When God instructed them, they obeyed.
Yeah, I agree.
But when they were kind of left to their own devices, they sometimes failed. So I think we need to keep that in mind too.
Absolutely. When he renames the place Bethel, anybody think of any other places in the Bible where Bethel plays a role? Mitch, hint, you taught this class one time. What ends up happening at Bethel? Does it become a temple for the Lord? Or what do they do there? They worship idols there. The idolatry worship just was rampant. And it ends up being right in this family again with the form of his wife. So to Mr. Cook's point, this was a dysfunctional family, but I don't believe it actually started with this generation. I thought some of that when I was thinking about Abraham and Isaac and his Ishmael and some of the decisions he made and evaluating myself as a father in comparison. And I think some of it began there. That just was, they seem to not be very good at passing along certain attributes of spiritual aspects to God. And God has to step in and say, "This is what you got to do." Especially in this case. Yeah, in 1 Kings chapter 13 and Hosea and Amos, there's all mention of the place of Bethel being the place of worship to idols. All right, so we got a few minutes left. Do we got any other comments or points? I didn't think we'd get even close to getting through both chapters. Mitch?
I think it's important to note that while these patriarchs, they did not have the word of God. They did not have the full revelation. Most of them didn't have access to people who had interaction interaction with God. That's the, how God wanted them to live. And yet they didn't do that great.
Yeah. Is it Eli? Is it Eli the priest that his sons went wild?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it can happen to anybody. I mean, anybody's sons. I went wild. But I'm saying, but I didn't go wild because I was taught. I went wild because I was self-willed. But even somebody that's taught can go wild and not come back, right? Like Eli may have done his best. He may not. But
Eli was condemned by God for not listening.
that's true. Yeah.
Aaron's sons went down. They got
Yeah.
punished immediately.
Yes, sir.
I think we can see oftentimes, and this would be a case, I think, God's word that we have today is what shapes us. And He's shaping Jacob. A rough start, yes, manipulated his mother and bad influence in that life, but God's shaping him for the job. Just He uses His word to do us.
Yeah, and that's the point I was trying to emphasize, that he ends up in Hebrews chapter 11, despite where he started, and the rearing he had, and the teaching he had, and the self-will he had, God was patient, hung in there with him, just like he does us. Mitch?
To the point, yes, Jacob started off with deception. But very shortly here, he's going to find out what it's like to be on the receiving end of that.
Yeah.
I think that helps his growth a lot. Oh, wait, this is what I did.
Yeah, and I think he develops an understanding of the vision that he has, that develops more over time as he matures. Because to me, when I read through it, it seems that he's really focused on the place. I'm going to rename this place. I'm going to rename, and the place ends up being a place of idol worship. The place ends up being irrelevant, but the dream becomes real relevant. In what way?
Foreshadowing God's eternal purpose.
Yeah, I mean, he is witnessing in a form spoken by Jesus to Nathaniel, the events of the future of access to God, that God comes down to us. No need to build a tower of Babel to reach God. He's gracious enough to come to us, and he's patient enough to hang in there when we keep sinning and acting a fool to bring us to that point. I was trying to find a point here that, Mitch, when you were talking about the influence of that the kids would have had in this family. So Abraham was 175, Isaac would have been 75. So Abraham was hanging around, but it seems like Isaac was 60 when his sons were born. I don't know. I can't find it in my notes here, but I can go back and look. It seems like there's about 15 years where Abraham was still around, that he would have, if they lived in the same vicinity, Jacob and Esau would have had his influence on him. And I mean, I would have probably been a pretty good influence to have on him. But despite influences, and unfortunately the wives have some real pull in the situation. Even the wives that Isaac chooses, she has some real pull on the decisions that these men make. And there's lessons in that too. And I'm not trying to be negative on the ladies, because men are just as much in the situation. But there's a lesson in that for sure, that you follow who? Your wife or God? God. All right. Any other points?
Yeah. When Isaac was born, when he was deceived by Esau, by Jacob, that just goes to show that we cannot trust our feelings, we can't trust our emotions, we can't trust our senses. You know what I'm saying? Because we can be wrong and not feel it. We can believe a lie and not realize it. Which is why we need to always have an open heart to the Word of God, willing to mold let it mold us and shape us. Be honest with it, because just because we feel it doesn't mean it's so.
Well, and that's why I kind of tried to allude to the beginning that he was so concerned about he was fixing to die. Even though he wasn't fixing to die, it was a feeling he had, right? He was working off of his emotions, which caused his emotions to try to push something through that was not God's plan, based on an emotion and a feeling. Kind of like your lesson a couple of weeks ago about Hezekiah. He was tore up with it. And he prayed in a different way, and got a response. But it's real easy to base decisions that are life changing based on emotion, not something that was fact. He didn't know he was going to die, and he was very he was poor eyesight. Obviously, he must not have been able to feel stuff. I don't know how you tell the difference between goat hair and he must have been real hairy, because goat hair is like real coarse, isn't it? Like you try to push it backwards and it's like, I mean, that's pretty wild. But anyway, that's what happened. Thank you.